Hello, everybody. I just wanted to go over a few things for quiz 5, 6, and 7. I sent out a little handout just now on it had an MLA link as well, so you might want to just real quickly refer to that. The easiest way to get your papers right, besides worrying about, oh my gosh, is it last name, first name, do I type out the whole first name, is just look at a sample paper. We use MLA in this class. Some of your other classes, science classes, even speech communication, softer sciences, right? They'll use APA. And they're similar, but there's just enough differences to really trip you up in terms of format. I'm not the kind of person who will dock you ridiculously because of format, but you should learn how to write a professional looking paper according to the guidelines of that discipline. So the easiest way is to just click on that link that I sent under, I think the title of the document is Notes for Quiz 5, 6, 7, an MLA link, or in the Little Brown Handbook, right? You look in there, follow that link, you can see the sample paper. You don't need to have any required sources this week for your essay that's due. But you should still make it look like that. 12-point font, so it's easy to read. Times New Roman is the standard. I mean, you could do another one, Calibri, Curry, or something like that, whatever. It's obvious, right? The different spacings and things, so you still have a sense of what the length is going to be anyway when you're done. So about 600 words on that. Can be longer if you want. Left justified for the margins, right? You want the heading on the left. You insert the page number in the upper right there. A couple other things that you want to do is there's equal spacing between everything. So just set it at double space and hit enter once at the end of a paragraph or at the end of a heading or the end of a line. And so the heading is your name, my name, Mark Armini, the class, English 1010, and then the date, right? The date that it's due, but date you write it, whatever. I'm not that picky about that particular thing. There is a title. It's centered, right? And then you hit enter once when it's on double space, so there's a line between all those things, and then you hit tab to indent 5 spaces and you start writing. So it's pretty straightforward. Just make it look like the papers that you see at that link that I gave you. Okay, so now the quizzes, right? Pretty simple stuff, so this isn't going to be too long. And then I think I'm going to upload another video to go over some examples of what I think is effective writing from your writing sample papers. So open that file if you haven't done so that I sent and take a look at noun and verb agreement. We've already kind of talked about this fact that for this quiz, right, this is pretty simple stuff. Your nouns and the verbs that agree with them should agree in number. So he is and they are, right? Whether it's singular or plural. And normally that's pretty simple to see, but there's a few cases we should talk about. If there's a preposition that describes your subject, right, it does not count for agreement. So the example I gave you there, a nest of eggs. Take out of eggs, right? Or a dog with ticks, or something like that, right? With ticks isn't part of the subject, it's extra description. There's just one dog there. There's just one nest there, even though it's composed of many parts. So you make it agree with a nest. A nest is, right? But if it was just eggs, eggs are. But a nest of eggs is just a nest is. Now, there's a couple other ways that you have compound subjects. And is pretty obvious, right? Jack and Jill went up the hill. Jack and Jill are. They're two people, so whenever you have and, it includes everything. It's plural. Or is different. If I say either Jack or Jill is coming to see me, well, that means only one of them is. So it's an is, right? Either or is one of them if they're both singular. But there's a rule for this in English if one of them is plural. So if I say something like either John or his children, right? So I'm talking about either this group of one or this group of many. Okay, so the group of many, if it's closest to the verb, that's the rule. That's what you would make it agree with. So either John or his children are going to pick up this package or whatever it is right there, right? If I switch it, it's the verb, it's the subject that is closest to the verb. So if I said either his children or John, I would say either his children or John is going to pick up this package. So it changes depending on the order of the singular and plural. Now, the convention in English is to put the plural second, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So normally you put the singular first and the plural second, and you conjugate the verb as a plural. But it could be the other way. So it just depends. The real rule is whichever is closest to the verb with or nor, right? Either of those, it's one or the other, right? And the closest one to the verb is the one that you conjugate the verb to agree with. And that's pretty much it for subject-verb agreement there. So let's go ahead now and talk about the second topic, the semicolons one, which you've already seen with the adverbial conjunctions. In general, semicolons are not used to start a list. I see that all the time, right? Where somebody will say, I need to pick up the following items, and then they'll put a semicolon. You need a colon, right? Just the two dots there. And the colon is only there if it's the end of an independent clause. So if you could put a period there, right, and then start a list, like I need to pick up some items. Hey, you're done, right? That's a complete thought. But then if I want to list the items, colon, Kleenex, food, soap, whatever it is that you're going to get there, right? Then you would put the colon. If you just say, the items I need are, and then you list them, because a verb leads right into it. There's no colon, there's no punctuation. You don't separate a verb from its subject and its object. So the items I need are, so whatever. No punctuation after are there. Okay, so that's the distinction. Now, semicolons, you use them to join two independent clauses that are complete thoughts, right? So two complete sentences, if you want to join them for some reason, semicolon is the same as a period if they're related thoughts. Just throw that semicolon in there. That's pretty much the major use. So it appears before adverbial conjunctions like however, therefore, nevertheless, if those adverbial conjunctions start a new thought, right? So it depends. It's like, I like this movie, semicolon. However, comma, movies are expensive, right? So that's, is it in the middle of two complete thoughts there? Now, they are used in one kind of list, a complicated list. You might want to refer to that last example under that section there. If you have an item that is further described, right? So the example I gave you is, I have 3 friends, colon. We could put a period there. John, a doctor, Sally, a baker, and Larry, a phrenologist. So since there's only 3 people, John, Sally, and Larry, and the other things are descriptions of them, I separate the description with a comma that leads back to the person, the proper noun, and then each person is separated with their role by a semicolon. It's the only time you're going to see a semicolon in a list. If it's a complex one where each item is further described by commas, to separate them clearly. Otherwise, semicolons are not involved in lists. Okay, so real quickly here, verb tense. I think that covers... Oh, I need to tell you what a phrenologist is, right, if you don't know. Well, phrenology is one of those pseudosciences that was around in like the late 19th century, where people would they believed in physiognomy as well, which is that your character was determined by your traits, so that you could tell something about somebody just by the way they looked, which is not science, right, pseudoscience of some kind. And so they would be the people who would feel the bumps on your head and tell you things about your character based on the bumps on your head there. So that's not a real job anymore, but I guess it used to be. All right, verb tense. Okay, so in general, we do want to refer to things in the past tense if they happen in the past historically. But if you're talking about a movie or a novel or a work of fiction, we refer to it in the present tense. So if I say Napoleon was this kind of leader, if I'm talking about him in history, I use the past tense was. Now, a lot of people use had when they don't need to. Like, I had seen this. The regular past tense of that would be, I saw it. I saw it yesterday, right? But if you need to show the order of events in the past out of order, then you use had. So, for example, right, I went to the theater, but it had already sold out. So it sold out before I left. So even though I told the story and I did something in the past, something else happened before that event. That's what had is for, right? When you need to show relative events in the past and still stick to the past. So in general, history, past tense. If we're talking about something we're doing now, present tense. Try to be consistent. But for a movie or a novel, right? Let's say it's a movie about Napoleon. I would say Napoleon is this kind of leader in this movie. If I'm talking about the movie, even though he's dead, I'm talking about a book like War and Peace with Tolstoy, where Napoleon's a character in it, I say is, as if it's happening right now, because I open the book and there it is, and it's technically fiction, right, that still happens because it's in the book there. Okay, so fictional events, present tense. Historical events, past tense. Personal stories, anecdotes, things like that. Probably past tense, and try to stick with the past tense when you speak about it. Okay, now, one more thing here. Regional dialects sometimes have a lot of variations, and so errors that I would see in the Southwest I never see here. Some errors in formal English that I hear all the time I would not have seen in the Southwest just because of regional variations in the way that we speak all the time. And one of the things is the past tense, right? There are some irregular past tenses in the dialect around here, like I seen, right? I seen, I see, I hear that all the time. Just remember the past tense of that, and I think it's on the quiz, departmental quiz. I saw, but I had already seen, or I had seen if something occurs before some other thing in the past tense there, right? So just try and be aware. Now that second part of the word that follows the helping verb, had or will be, the things that shows tense, that's called the participle. So if you ever see me say the word participle, that's just a verb like, okay, I had gone. Gone. It's an action, but it's not what the verb is conjugated with. Now, if I said I was going, right? Going, ing. The going would also be a participle. So anything that follows, any action that follows the helping verb, the participle is the form that follows that helping verb. And it can be in a couple different forms for some verbs. Now, the hard part, okay? There are some irregular verbs, and one of the quiz questions talks about lay and lie. So you might just want to review this little chart I made here. If you are talking about action verbs, some have objects, some do not. Some never have objects, and some can have objects sometimes. So if I say I slept, there's no object. It's just a subject, sleeping. Nothing is happening to anyone at all, right? So that's an intransitive verb. If I say John threw the ball, he's throwing something. The ball is receiving the action, so that's a transitive verb, right? And so one of my pet peeves, right, but it's no big deal if you use this in parlance. I don't really care, but itch and scratch, one of those is a transitive verb, and one of them is not. And they're both nouns. So you can have an itch and you can have a scratch, even though they're different, right? But if you are scratching something, right, you can scratch an itch, but you can never itch a scratch because itch is intransitive and it's always going to be intransitive. It just says, I itch, right? It's just a description of a state. So that's always an intransitive verb. And lie and lay are the same thing. Lie does not have an object if you're talking about reclining. So something lies there all by itself. And usually you just need to worry about the present tense, right? So I have this pen. I lie the pen. No, that's wrong. That doesn't work that way, right? I lay the pen. Lay has the object. And then the pen lies there. Okay, so if you're doing something to something else, like you put it down, right? You put it in place. It's lay or lying. Laying. So hard to get this right. It's lay or laying in the present tense, right? Like he is laying on the couch. Okay, no, he's not, right? That's wrong. So I'm trying to indicate that this is hard, right? And so one of the questions there is about lie and lay. So it lies all by itself. He is lying on the couch, okay? But I can lay the dog down in the present tense. Or I can be laying the carpet. That would be the continuous action for laying. Like he's putting something down the whole time there. But the problem is the past tense. The past tense of lie is lay. So he can just lay there all day yesterday. He lay there all day yesterday, right? And if I wanted to say that in the perfect tense, he had lain around all day. That's just lying there. But if you're doing something, right, you are laying something down in the present. It was laid there in the past, and he had laid tile all day yesterday. So lay is doing something to someone else. And so I think it's just present tense in the quiz. Lie has no object. Lay has an object. And then it's even further complicated by the verb lie, to tell an untruth. So the present tense of reclining and telling an untruth are exactly the same. Lie, lying. The past tense is different, right? He lied about it. Okay, he lied to me yesterday, right? He told me an untruth, he fibbed, he prevaricated, right? And then we have, he had lied to me already, by the time I found out the truth, okay? So that's pretty much it for those tenses. I'm going to be uploading a second video in a minute here. So that one is not going to be about grammar. It's going to be about good examples, right? Good examples from the writing samples that I saw. So this is just for quiz 5, 6, and 7. And then if you wanted to check out some of my advice and concerns about the writing, we can do that. So that'll be up shortly.